Good night, itchy eyes. Good night, sudden sneeze. Good night to your symptoms of allergies. Zysol is the allergy medicine you take before bed. It provides powerful relief while you rest your head. Not just all night, but all the next day. Zysol keeps working, keeping allergies at bay. And without those annoying symptoms disturbing your rest, you can wake up the next morning feeling your absolute best. Remember, be wise all, take Zysol. At night.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
In 1988, a small New Jersey town is shaken by horror. A devoted mother murdered, satanic symbols scattered throughout her home, and her teenage son vanished without a trace. Was this a demonic ritual or a calculated act of evil? Horror master Eli Roth unravels a terrifying truth in Let the Devil In. Now streaming new episodes Sundays exclusively on MGM+.
Did you hear those ads at the beginning of this podcast? If you don't want to ever hear those again, feel free to join us on Patreon, Supercast, or Apple subscriptions. Links will be in the show notes.
Explicit content is found in this episode, so listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to True Crime Cases. I'm your host, Lanie. It's one of those trends you see a lot on social media. Post a photo of yourself 5, 10, 15 years ago, and a photo of you now. If you've participated in that, you've probably felt the same way everyone else does. Like that person existed an entire lifetime ago. Let's go back a little further. Can you remember what you were doing 23 years ago? Maybe you were just starting school or college. You got married, had a kid, went on the best vacation ever, and it's kind of fun to reminisce about. Or maybe you weren't in a good place, battling an addiction or going through a bad breakup or dropping out of school. And you're just happy you're not there anymore. Well, think about that space of time. Can you imagine waiting for one specific thing to happen for all those years? It's not something you think about every now and then, like hoping to have your dream wedding, but something that consumes your thoughts all day, every day, for 23 years. Something awful. Now, can you imagine how those 23 years would have felt if one of your parents was murdered at the beginning and your other parent finally got convicted of it at the end? For Haley Sisco, this isn't an imagined situation. This has been her life since 2002, when she was only 17 years old. She and her younger brother Dustin have spent more of their life without their father and without justice for him than they ever got to spend with him. But nearly a quarter of a century later, that's finally coming to an end for them. Today, we'll be covering the murders of Mike Sisco and Karen Harkness. Okay, on to the show. Michael Ray Sisco was born in Topeka, Kansas on December 16, 1954, and grew up on a farm alongside his two siblings. Luckily for Mike, he adored the outdoors, so the family farm was the perfect place for him to roam and explore. As he got older, he enjoyed fishing and hunting, and even became a student of wildlife biology at Kansas State University in 1972. Academics, however, were not for Mike. He never completed his KSU degree, and though he may have also attended Washburn University, he didn't leave that course with qualifications either. But Mike didn't need them, securing a position in sales that eventually led him to becoming the district sales manager for the company National Standing Welding Products. Everyone who knew Mike absolutely adored him. His mother Carol remarked that his wonderful sense of humor drew people to him, and that he never lost that sense of humor, no matter how difficult things may have been for him personally. Add to that, Mike was kind and compassionate, and made time for everyone and anyone that needed him. His caring personality made him an asset to his church, Carbondale Congregational Church. Mike was first married to a woman named Dana Chandler, the ceremony taking place in 1982. Their relationship wasn't perfect, and by far the best thing about it was their 2 children. First, a daughter Haley, born in 1985, and then her brother Dustin, who came along 2 years later. It isn't clear exactly why or when Mike and Dana divorced, but the legal process has been reported on both sides as being bitter, long, and especially ugly. The divorce and ensuing custody battle began some point in the 90s and took around 4 years in total to be finalized in 1998. Eventually, Mike was granted full custody of their 2 children, as the court deemed him to be the one more reliable and the more stable parent to be raising them. The court also ruled that Dana would pay child support to her ex-husband as a part of this arrangement. Then, around 1998, Mike met Karen. Karen K. Warswick was also born and raised in Topeka. 5 years older than Mike, she was born on May 18, 1949, and grew up alongside one sibling. Karen also loved the outdoors and led an active lifestyle, with a particular love for tennis. She received a bachelor's degree in physical education from the University of Kansas before moving on to work in sales, first at the Capitol Plaza Hotel, then moving on to a position as a convention sales representative at the Topeka Convention and Visitors Bureau. Like Mike, Karen was also previously married, though Karen seemed to be a much more amicable relationship and subsequent separation. Karen had 2 children, Chad and Aaron, with DeWitt Harkness Jr. before their divorce in 1996. Once they had met, Mike and Karen's relationship felt almost inevitable. They shared a deep love for their respective children, a passion for the outdoors, steady careers, and good heads on their shoulders. They spent time together fishing, hiking, camping, golfing, and cooking. They were incredibly happy together, and according to Karen's father, everything they did was for each other. By July 7, 2002, the couple had been together for 4 years, and their families began to gain a sense of excitement. That very day, Mike's mother and Karen's parents were supposed to meet the pair at their shared home, each anticipating the 2 were going to announce their long-awaited engagement. But when Karen's father, Harold Warswick, rang the doorbell, nobody answered. That wasn't too strange. Mike and Karen had been out to Sac and Fox Casino the previous night for dinner and some fun, not returning home until after 1 a.m. It was entirely possible they were sleeping in after their fun night out. Harold waited, knocked again, but still, nobody answered. The 3 parents knew they were expected. They knew Mike and Karen would have told them if they were delayed for any reason, and they knew something was wrong. So they went around to the back door to see if they could make anything out inside, only to find the back door was slid wide open. They entered the house and still couldn't find either party on the main floor, or any sign that they were even around. As a last resort, it was Harold who ventured downstairs to the basement, where Mike and Karen's bedroom was located. As soon as he spotted his daughter, he knew she was dead. A little further away, Mike had met the same fate. Karen and Mike had lived and loved together, And in the most devastating turn of events possible, they had died together too. Just after 2 p.m., Topeka PD officers were alerted to the finding and arrived at the scene. It quickly became clear to them that the couple had been asleep when they were attacked, shot to death with a 9mm firearm. Mike had been shot between 5 and 7 times, while Karen had been shot 5 times. Some of the shots inflicted on Karen were located on her back, indicating she may have been trying to escape her attacker. When it came to a motive, robbery was almost immediately ruled out. As the parents had noticed, the main floor showed no signs of a disturbance, and during their analysis of the home, police easily discovered $1,000 in cash, as well as several pieces of expensive jewelry. The house hadn't been ransacked. Nothing seemed to be missing, and the shooting itself showed clear signs of overkill. Lead Detective Richard Vole described the murders as an emotional execution, and naturally, the investigation began into the people closest to Mike Sisco and Karen Harkness. Their families. Their children. Karen's children, Chad and Aaron, were older than Mike's children, Haley and Dustin, the former in their 20s while the latter were still teenagers. Dustin, still only 15, was actually living with his father and Karen at the time of their murders, but wasn't present in the home that night because he was out on a canoeing trip. Out of the 4 of them, only one child had any sort of animosity towards their parents, Haley Sisco. Haley had been a rebellious teenager, probably to be expected after experiencing the turbulent process of her parents' divorce, and was deeply unhappy in the months leading up to her father's death. When Mike finally put his foot down about her behavior, telling Haley she needed to follow his rules or move out, she left to live with her boyfriend, Chris. However, the younger couple cooperated fully with investigators. They had solid alibis and willingly underwent polygraph examinations. Although Haley had argued with her dad regularly, that didn't mean she wanted him to die. She was as devastated as the rest of them. So both Haley and Chris were quickly ruled out as suspects in the murder. Chad, Aaron, and Aaron's husband were also questioned, and Chad underwent polygraph questioning too, but none of them were ever seriously considered suspects. What soon became clear as the police spoke with the families is that there was only really one person who had any issues with Mike, and this was also the only person who had any issues at all with Karen. Mike and Karen were popular, universally loved by everyone who knew them, all except for that one person, Mike's ex-wife and Haley and Dustin's mother, Dana Chandler. Although Dana had moved 8 hours away to Denver, Colorado following the divorce, she remained a constant thorn in the side of her ex-husband and children. An alcoholic with diagnosed major depression and histrionic personality disorder, Dana's obsession with her ex-husband escalated to the extent that she began stalking and harassing him. Someone who witnessed a lot of Dana's erratic behavior was Mike's sister Kathy, who was staying with Mike during the lengthy divorce process. She recalled one night in particular where her niece and nephew had gone to sleep, when she and Mike heard something strange coming from the garden. When they went to check what the disturbance was, they found Dana jumping on the trampoline outside of Mike's home. She didn't even say anything to them. She was just laughing and jumping on her soon-to-be ex-husband's trampoline in the middle of the night. And her menacing, random appearances in and around the house continued for years. Mike's brother Tim mentioned being at a family get-together at Mike and Karen's home when he saw Dana drive past. She would peer in windows, sit outside for hours, and even climb through windows to sneak into the home unannounced. Mike began to note down the harassment he was receiving in a journal. 2 entries read, July 28, 1998, Dana stalking neighborhood at 8:30. Caught her. She left. November 12, 1998, Dana came in-house while I was at Karen's from 7 to 11. Went through stuff. Caught her walking out back door when I came in. Called police. Things escalated when Mike and Karen got together. They received constant phone calls all day and all night, and Dana left incessant bizarre messages on Karen's voicemail. The calls were so frequent that Karen was exhausted and terrified, telling a friend that she didn't know if she could keep living with the harassment from Dana. According to phone records, Dana called the couple 700 times in the months leading up to their murders. Within an 18-minute period on June 3rd, she made a total of 17 phone calls. Haley and Dustin weren't safe from their mother's obsession either. She excused her constant phone calls to the home by claiming she wanted to talk to the kids, but when she did, it was all about Mike. Whenever she spoke to either of her children, she would barrage them with questions about their father, what he was doing, where he was. She had no interest in speaking to them about themselves or checking in on them. When Dana had visitations with the children, she seemed to see them as little more than opportunities to stalk their father. She would sit in the car outside Mike and Karen's homes for long stretches of time, apparently waiting to drop the children off. Sometimes she would even tell them they were going to be her little helpers, and Dana would get them to spy on Mike, looking through his windows and reporting back to her what he was doing. Dustin would recall doing this when he was only 12 years old. Dana also sent numerous crude emails and messages to Haley complaining about Karen, bad-mouthing her and making comments about her being a tramp and spreading her legs. Haley was only about 14 when she was receiving these messages. In June, about a month before Mike and Karen were murdered, Mike came home to find Dana in his house, uninvited. According to his sister, Dana told him that since the kids were getting older and experiencing different issues with themselves, they really needed both parents in their lives. So, she told Mike that, "I think we should move back in and we should parent together." She told him this, knowing perfectly well that he and Karen had been in a loving and committed relationship for 4 whole years. Apparently, in response, Mike called her crazy and told her he was going to marry Karen. Mike and Karen's families and investigators believe this is what finally tipped Dana over the edge, knowing the object of her obsession had rejected her for good. Both Mike and Karen were legitimately terrified for their lives, and Mike said as much to his brother-in-law, Mark, Kathy's husband. He was on a fishing trip with Mike when he said, quote, "Mark, you're going to wake up and find me dead, and I want you to know who did it. Dana Chandler." 9 days later, Mike and Karen were dead.
It's back to school season and Clorox is donating 2 million disinfecting wipes to classrooms across America. Because back to school means things can get a little bit messy. Just ask kindergarten teacher Miss Gibson.
Give me just one Clorox wipe and I'm ready for glitter glue, exploded lunchbox yogurt, peanut butter handprints, runny noses, picking noses, rubbing noses.
Touching noses.
Thank you, Edward. Ooh, nap mats and lockers and tissue boxes. And
Clorox
scissors.
disinfecting wipes. Teacher's #1 wipe. Clean feels good. Based on unit sales data.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contrast. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
So there it was. The police had an overwhelmingly compelling motive for Dana. Between her jealousy and harassment, her obsession with Mike, and her hatred of Karen, she was the most likely culprit to have caused the couple harm. But what they didn't have was evidence. No fingerprints, no DNA, not even any proof that Dana was in the same state that night. And that, for the most part, is why it has taken 23 years to reach a conclusive verdict. Mike's family didn't want Dana to attend his funeral service. She agreed, but only under the condition that she and the kids could have a private viewing the day before the service. Neither of the Sisco children wanted to go to this viewing with their mom, telling their uncle, Tim Sisco, quote, "Mom did this." Even this early on, they had no doubt that Dana was guilty of killing Mike and Karen. They eventually agreed to attend with their mother, despite at this time being terrified of her. When police spoke with Dana, she said that on July 6th, the day before the killings, she was at home in Colorado. She spent that morning running errands, bought cigarettes and snacks, filled her car with gas, and then came back home. And early the next morning, she went for a drive in the mountains, but this alibi couldn't be verified. Her cell phone had been shut off for 27 hours straight, so it did not track her movements. She made no transactions on her credit card, and her car hadn't been caught on a single surveillance camera to confirm her location. That last point was strange to detectives, who knew that Rocky Mountain National Park surveillance cameras should have caught footage of her at least once if she was in that area. But when they checked, there wasn't a single sighting of Dana or her vehicle. The lack of phone usage in particular was immediately suspicious to everyone who knew Dana, who was constantly on her phone and never switched it off, something that was easily corroborated by the data from her phone itself. There was no history of Dana being off of her phone for that extent of time at any point, except for one other night, a month before the murders. That weekend happened to be another one where neither Dustin nor Haley was at home with their father, and Dana told a friend that she had driven to Mike's house, 8 hours away, and climbed through the window. It appears Mike was also not home, and then Dana left the house and parked outside of Karen's home, just watching the premises. This, investigators believed, was a dry run for the actual murders. But this proved nothing about the weekend of July 6th and 7th. So detectives were sent along the route Dana would have driven, stopping at every convenience store and truck stop along the way in search of CCTV footage that could prove Dana was lying about her whereabouts that weekend. What they got instead was an eyewitness account. A clerk named Patty Williams told them that she was 70% certain Dana had stopped at her truck stop that night to use the restroom. Patty was even able to describe Dana in more detail than she would have been able to get from a photograph alone. Something else wasn't adding up. When Dana told investigators about her errands on the morning of July 6th, she specifically didn't mention a purchase they believed was crucial to the overnight journey. Alongside her snacks and cigarettes and filling up the tank of her car, she also bought 2 5-gallon gas cans. Wow, does that remind you of Jodi Arias or what? This led Detective Vole to believe that all of her purchases that morning were made so that she wouldn't have to risk being caught on camera while she drove to and from murdering her ex-husband and his partner. The gas especially meant she didn't have to stop at any monitored pumps or use her credit card at any point on the trip. After these purchases were made on Saturday morning, the next time they had a location for Dana was in Loveland, Colorado, where she was buying clothes in a Walmart on Sunday, July 7th. Authorities believed she was replacing the clothes she had worn to murder Mike and Karen, disposing of them as incriminating evidence somewhere along the way. The location of the Walmart was strange in itself, 57 miles north of Denver. and investigators theorize that Dana ended up there after taking a circular route back home after the murder, through Nebraska to avoid Kansas authorities. This may have explained why Dana needed so much extra fuel. Dana later tried to convince her daughter that she had purchased the gas cans for a girl she met at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Apparently, this never-named girl told Dana her car was out of gas and asked for money to fill it up. But since they weren't supposed to exchange money at AA, Dana went and bought her gas instead. Dana couldn't give any identifying information about the girl so that she could verify the story. And quite frankly, it seems unlikely that there's anything true about this claim. But still, this was all circumstantial evidence, and the district attorney wouldn't pursue legal action against Dana any further until they had something more concrete. Family members of Mike and Karen did everything they could to try and help the investigation along. Kathy and Carol Sisco, Mike's mother and sister, tried driving the route they believed Dana would have taken, seeing if they could locate the missing murder weapon, and looking for anyone who might have seen her that night. Haley, meanwhile, was determined to prove her mother was involved, and began to secretly record their conversations. She was hoping she could get her to confess or let some sort of detail slip that would implicate her in the killings, but Dana firmly maintained her innocence at all times. This went on for years following the murders of Mike Sisco and Karen Harkness. Investigators ran out of avenues to explore, and family members had dead end after dead end, even though every single one of them was certain who had been responsible for the deaths. In 2009, an episode of 48 Hours was aired about the case, in the hopes of gaining some information about potential new leads from the public. During this, a law enforcement report was broadcast, which revealed to the public that Dana was still considered the primary suspect in the case. Eventually, a new district attorney came into office, and although the case was still entirely circumstantial, they decided to make a move. Dana Chandler was finally arrested in 2011 and pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. She was held on $1 million bail as she awaited trial. Haley and Dustin each testified against their mother during the 2012 trial, an act of incredible vulnerability and bravery on both their parts. Dustin was almost brought to tears when he described how he found out about his father's death, when his sister and grandmother arrived unexpectedly to collect him from his canoeing trip. Haley told the court that she knew from the start that her mother had killed their father and Karen, and the tape recordings she had taken during the conversations with her mother were played for the jury. Unfortunately, truck stop clerk Patty Williams was the only eyewitness to Dana's movements on the night of the murder. She was not able to give testimony as she had passed away 6 years earlier. Prosecutors were still able to relay her statement, but it didn't hold as much weight as a personal testimony. Although a jailhouse recorded call between Dana and her sister Shirley managed to give this evidence a little bit more weight. Prosecutors argued that in this recording, Dana and Shirley were celebrating the death of the only witness to Dana being in Kansas that night. The defense focused on the lack of physical evidence to implicate Dana and argued that police had failed to investigate other possible suspects in their certainty that Dana was guilty. Apparently, around the time of the murders, there had been a series of break-ins near Karen's home that shared some similarities with the crime scene. One of the men arrested for these burglaries even had possession of a check from Mike Sisco, but it was determined that this check was forged and didn't come from Mike and Karen's home at the time of the murder. The jury only spent 83 minutes in deliberation before coming back with a verdict: guilty on both counts of first-degree murder. 5 months later, Dana Chandler was sentenced to 2 life sentences for the murders of Mike Sisco and Karen Harkness. This brought a huge relief to the loved ones of the victims who felt they were finally getting the justice they deserved after 10 long years. They were finally free, while the woman responsible for the worst moments of their life was no longer free. Frustratingly, though, the story doesn't end here. In 2018, the conviction was overturned due to prosecutorial misconduct of prosecutor Jackie Spradling. The Kansas Supreme Court ruled that she had presented made-up and misleading evidence to the court. Most damaging to her credibility, Spradling had claimed that Mike Sisco was granted a protection from abuse court order from a judge against Dana Chandler before his death. This was proven to be completely untrue, and in May 2022, Spradling was disbarred due to the intolerable acts of deception she had carried out. The Kansas Supreme Court did, however, believe there was still enough evidence for a retrial if the district attorney wanted to pursue it. They ruled that Dana, quote, had motive and opportunity and engaged in suspicious behaviors after the murders. Of course, the DA did want to pursue a retrial, but the retrial was rough. Dana's lawyers filed hundreds of motions requesting various concessions to be made for the defense, such as a change of judge and reduction of Dana's $1 million bond. She also fired several lawyers throughout this process, which led to her questioning her own children during multiple pretrial hearings. Haley considered this experience the most awful thing ever, having to stare down the murderer of her father, her own mother, and being forced to answer her interrogations. Due to the lack of concrete physical evidence in this case, Dana also caught the attention of the advocacy group Miracle of Innocence. This group aims to assist in freeing the wrongfully convicted and help them readjust to life outside of prison on their release. They truly believe that there was just not enough evidence to convict Dana for the murders. Finally, Dana went back on trial in 2022. Very little differed between this and the first trial, but the outcome was significantly different. With 7 votes to convict and 5 to acquit, a hung jury was declared after 6 days of deliberation. Haley was seen sobbing as she realized that yet again, this traumatizing period of their lives wasn't over. Following this trial, Dana's bond was reduced from $1 million to $350,000, and she was allowed to be released under supervision and GPS monitoring. This brought horror and terror to the hearts of Mike and Karen's families. Haley especially feared that her mother would want to come after her and her own family, a fear that was only heightened by a ranting message Dana posted on Facebook. The text may have been about her mistreatment at trial, but the images behind it were of Haley's children. Dana was forbidden from having any contact with her children, and by extension their families, but she had circumvented this order to make her daughter feel violated and threatened. Haley told CBS News that she felt it was meant to send a direct message to her, one intended to intimidate and communicate that she didn't care about Haley's boundaries. Dana's bid for acquittal was denied, and the gap between trials was much shorter this time. Less than 3 years after the mistrial in February 2025, the third and final trial got underway. It faced delays as experts and reports were introduced and dismissed, and again in early 2025 when Dana's sisters were involved in a car crash. Her sister Shirley was injured, while their older sister Marcia was killed in the accident. This time, the trial took place in Pottawatomie County, 60 miles away from the previous, in hopes of securing a fair jury. And on the very first morning, Dana Chandler dismissed all of her attorneys, forcing her children into facing her for direct questioning one final time. The evidence hadn't changed much, the prosecution relying on motive and the history of stalking, with the defense focusing on the circumstantial nature of the case. She gave her own closing statement saying, "My liberty, my freedom is hanging in the silence," and the jury responded after 4 hours, finding her guilty for the second and final time. For the 2002 first-degree murders of Mike Sisco, 47, and Karen Harkness, 53, Dana Chandler was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison in June of 2025. She was given 2 consecutive life terms with parole only eligible after 50 years, with credit for the 13 years Dana served between the prior trials. 65 years old at the time of sentencing, Dana will be over 100 years old before reaching this eligibility. Apparently, she's filing appeals, but I'm finished talking about her now. I can't even imagine the relief the victim's loved ones must be feeling. 23 years after the loss of her father, Haley could only lament that the focus has shifted from the victims, two beautiful people beloved by everyone around them, to the woman who viciously murdered them. She told CBS News, "I hope that from here on out, the victims and the families can be remembered more." Since her father's death, Haley has gotten married to her high school boyfriend, Chris Seal, and is now a mother of 3. She wants to be everything to her own family that her mom wasn't, and tells her children that her dad was a really fun, supportive, encouraging guy who believed in her and her brother, and that Karen was so kind, so accepting. To Dustin, his father was his hero. "My dad was really my life growing up." It's truly devastating that Mike Sisco didn't get to know either of his children as adults. Karen's children, Chad and Aaron Harkness, at least got a little more time with their mother, already being adults at the time of the murders, though nothing prepares you for the shock of losing a parent so violently. Chad said nobody could understand why anybody would want to hurt his mom, while Aaron said she remembered telling Karen, "If I could be half the mom that she was to me, then I would be the best mom in the world." I hope all 4 can see how proud their parents would be of them for being so strong through such a prolonged and horrifying experience. Okay, listeners, thank you for joining me in this episode as we file away another true crime case. If you like our podcast, please review us on Apple Podcast or your podcast player of choice. It's a really big help. Follow us on social media. We're active on Twitter for now at truecrime_cases, Facebook at facebook.com/truecrimecaseswlanie, and Instagram at truecrimecaseswithlanie. Our website is truecrimecasespodcast.com, and you can follow me on Instagram at Lanie Hobbs VO or on TikTok at Lanie Hobbs. And we'd love to hear your episode suggestions. Send us an email, tcfcpod@gmail.com. This episode was researched, written, and edited by Jesse Hawke of the Inky Pawprint, with content editing by Lanie Hobbs. Audio engineering produced by the best in the business, Neeks at We Talk of Dreams. Check him out on Twitter at We Talk of Dreams or at theinkypawprint.com.